The Capitals lose another big game to the Colorado Avalanche, but Alex Ovechkin keeps rolling. What is the future of this year's Capitals team after another big loss? I'll discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the changes that are ahead for the Capitals. Yes, GM Brian Maclellan said that before the Capitals took on the Bruins, the Canucks, and the Avalanche, that how the Capitals play within those three games will determine in which direction the Capitals team will go. We'll talk about that in the show a little bit later. We will talk about how Alex Ovechkin keeps rolling. Who is this Alex Ovechkin? But just to get it going here, we will talk about another big loss to the Colorado Avalanche. I'm going to be honest with you here, Capitals fans. I thought there was going to be a way they were going to pull this one out. They had that positive momentum going from the Bruins game, and, they had the overtime loss to the Canucks. So not a total loss, it was a good game, all things considered, and I thought they would just kind of keep pushing that positive momentum forward. But alas, it wasn't to be, as the Capitals drop another game in which was a true measuring stick, a true litmus test for this team to see what they had in the tank. And ultimately, is this team even a contender in the Metro Division? A tough game to watch, but it wasn't a total dumpster fire. If you take a look that the Colorado Avalanche scored quickly within the first 5 minutes, 2 goals. And I thought to myself, wow, this is the direction this game is going to go in. Do I need to watch the rest of it? Can I just kind of fast forward it until the end? Sometimes you have those thoughts. I watch all the games, but sometimes that's the thought that goes on in your head, and I'm watching it, and then all of a sudden, Malenstyn gets a goal, and then Connor McMichael gets a goal, and I'm like, here we go, back into it. I thought the Capitals were going to be able to find a way to keep going, but it was a tough game for the Capitals, as the Colorado Avalanche have a lot of offensive firepower. They have a really great netminder. So that is why they are in the position that they're in. They are stocked with really great players. And subsequently, that is why they are in the position that they are in. But a tough game, watching it as a Capitals fan, as you watch these games, you think, they're going to turn it around. They've got to find a way to turn it around. And, this was one of the games that they let us down. The Capitals, fresh off an impressive games with two of the best teams in the NHL, with a win over the Bruins and an OT loss to the Canucks. I thought there would be a possibility they could pull this one out. The Caps were on their heels to start the game, as Avs scored 2 goals less than 5 minutes into the game. The Caps turned over the puck, to which led to breakaways, and the Avs made the Capitals pay. And they did. It's not the kind of team that you can take lightly. You have to take them very seriously, that if you have any miscues, if there's any missed defensive assignments, the Avs will make you pay, and they made the Capitals pay. And one of the great moments of the game was to see the pushback from the Caps, with quick goals from Malenstyn and McMichael, ending his 15-game goalless drought. And as we take a look, we're at the assessment point of the season right now. I really do believe it. It's not about, this Hail Mary pass of, are the Capitals going to make it to the playoffs? My belief is that they are not. The Bruins was kind of one of those last ditch things of like, hurrah, they're going to do it. And then the Canucks, they lost in overtime. And this one is like, it was just fool's gold. I thought that they were going to be able to turn it around. And, I'll talk about this a little bit later, that there was great significance with these three games: the Bruins, the Canucks, the Avalanche. GM Brian Maclellan said he will use that to gauge in which direction this team will go. And I'll talk about that in this third segment. So there was a lot riding on this game, and Charlie Lindgren spoke about it as much as, he feels like we're at the point, and we hear this all the time, the margin for error is razor fine. We hear that all the time, but it's lip service at the end of the day, because the Capitals continue to fall flat on their face. Later, Alex Ovechkin scored a goal from the left circle and nearly scored another later in the game. So that's the bright spot, this season right now, is that Alex Ovechkin has found his game. I would say that it would just be complete doom and gloom right now if Alex Ovechkin was still going through his struggles. Say he was, going through a goalless drought right now. Then that would have been just like the final straw for this season, I think. But the fact that Alex Ovechkin has found his game is, the silver lining for this season, if you will. We know that he had a rough start, and now he is finding his game. So those are the things that we're dealing with: assessing the team, who stays, who goes. And it's all about now Alex Ovechkin going after Gretzky. Another interesting thing in the game, too, was that Wilson was on the fourth line with Nick Dowd and Beck Malenstyn. And it's not the normal demotion that you think of, like a player played very poorly, so they're going to get sent down to the fourth line. To be honest with you, the Capitals' fourth line is often one of, if not the best line out there. The only reason that they did it was to add another physical player and shut down a guy against Nathan MacKinnon's line. So there was some method to the madness, and ultimately I liked it. Malenstyn and Dowd, and you put Wilson in the mix, that is a pretty good line out there. I don't know if we will see that in the future. Kind of my hunch is that was something that was just formulated based on the lineup and playing against the Avs and how their lines are constructed. But a rough game for the Capitals. Again, I was hoping for, something to really cheer about. In the next segment, I'll talk about Alex Ovechkin, but a rough loss. And, I do expect that there will be some changes coming here soon. I would not be surprised, if we don't hear that there's a move here within the next day or two. I really do believe it, according to what Brian Maclellan said. But taking a look at the game, it was a rough one. The good things is that, Connor McMichael got a goal, so he got off the goalless drought. Alex Ovechkin scored a goal, those kind of things. And it's just the building blocks in the pushback, that even though the Avs, scored two on the Capitals right away, that the Capitals had some pushback, that Malenstyn and McMichael said, hey, I'm gonna have some pushback here as well. So all things considered, there's some good, there's some bad to the game. But at the end of the day, it's on to the next one. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about even though the Capitals did not get the results that they were looking for as far as wins are concerned, Alex Ovechkin continues to keep dominating. How does he keep getting it done? I'll discuss coming up. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And one of the things that I don't like is that when my favorite band comes to town, my favorite sports team is playing, I have a hard time finding tickets. Take the guesswork out of all of it with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED ON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find a Locked On Sports Today now available on Fire TV Channels app. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Capitals did not get the result that they were looking for as they fell 6-3. It's one of those, games that you're like, oh, there's nothing positive to talk about, but there is something positive to talk about. Alex Ovechkin continues to dominate, and he scored a goal from a familiar place from the left circle, and he nearly scored another goal. He shot it, and it kind of bounced under the net a little bit, and it caromed off his back. And I thought, well, somehow, some way, that's got to go in the net, but it didn't. Otherwise, I think we might have been talking about a different game. But Alex Ovechkin was definitely one of the bright spots of the game. Ovi has 14 goals on the year and has scored in 6 straight games after mustering just 9 goals in the first half of the season. Quite impressive, improbable, not impossible, obviously. I did not see this coming. There are quite a bit of OV fans out there that said, he's going to do it, Dan. He's going to do it. I hear it on YouTube. I hear it on Twitter. And to those people, I did not believe it. There was nothing in his game that led me to believe that he was going to find his game, that, just magically a switch was going to get flipped and he was going to find the game, but he did. And when did he find that magical switch? Well, it was during the All-Star break. And he went to Dubai, riding around on camels, hanging out with some friends and his family, and probably having some beers. And he, just took some time to forget about hockey systems and, what is ailing him on the ice. And he came back a changed man. And, when I heard the interview with him, that all the stuff that he did in Dubai, I was thinking to myself, hey, maybe instead of going to Dubai, you should spend some time on the ice and work on your game there a little bit. As it turned out, rest was exactly what the doctor ordered for Ovi. Ovechkin has really found his game and is in the midst of one of his longest goal streaks in recent memory. So this is just not, the fact that he's scoring a goal here or a goal there. He is just chipping away and kind of making up for a lot of, the lost ground that was lost earlier in the year. He has 836 career goals. All of a sudden, a 20-goal season is in reach, and the possibility of catching Gretzky is closer to reality than we thought it was going to be. Again, it's still going to be difficult for Ovi to catch Wayne Gretzky. I think that, one of the things that we've learned about Alex Ovechkin is to never count him out. Tom Wilson said that. John Carlson said that. All of them said that. And it seems like it's true. It's just one of the tough things is that he had such a slow start to the season that was time that was lost, now it's a very real possibility that he might need an extension, a new contract in order to accomplish his goal. And being 38 years old, I understand that he's playing really good right now, but things do not get easier the older that you get. You take a look at him historically, just a couple of years ago, 50 goals and 40 goals, those kind of things. I think that 50 goals and 40 goal seasons, those are probably a thing of the past. 20 goals, 20 to 30 goals is what I would expect to see from him going forward. So I guess, again, I've been wrong. I could be wrong again. Maybe he will just, score, 25, 30 goals this year, maybe just really blow it out of the water. But it is interesting that he is turning it on late in the season. We're past the halfway point of the season, and he is making the most of his opportunities. And I think, to a certain extent, he's, and one of the things that I heard Tarek El-Bashir talk about is that he is a guy that scores goals in bunches. And it's one of the things that I've talked about is that when he has positivity, that, all of a sudden good things happen. He scores one goal and then he scores a bunch more goals. If you want, proof in the pudding there, take a look at the All-Star break. He scored a goal and then a bunch of goals happened. And that's what I'm talking about when I say projecting success and projecting failure. To start the season, I think that even Alex Ovechkin, number 2 all time in goals, I think he was projecting failure. So it's interesting that, just a couple good things happening here and happening there can really turn around the fortunes of your play on the ice. You want another example? Take a look at Anthony Mantha. Had one of his worst seasons ever last season and to start this season for that matter. And now he is one of the key contributors in the offense for the Capitals. So that's what it's all about, is just trying to keep your head tight and not allowing a lot of the outside noise to come in, so that every time when the game's done, the beat writers are asking him, when are you going to catch Gretzky? When are you going to catch Gretzky? That he can just put muffs on and kind of just close all of that out, which is easier said than done, and just worry about the task at hand. And that's scoring a goal this game, maybe 2 goals the next game, and just contributing. To start the season, to be fair, it's not like he was totally absent. He was near the top of the team in assists. Last time I checked, he was just behind John Carlson. So he was getting contributions in there. It's not like he totally fell off, but now he's turning into that well-rounded hockey player that we know Alex Ovechkin is. There's always kind of been a knock on him defensively, but now he's getting assists, which means he's passing, but now also he's integrated and added the goal scoring, his bread and butter, the vintage Alex Ovechkin that we've known to love for so many years. And it's interesting how he's getting it done. I mean, I don't think that there's anything really majorly done on the ice that's changed. I just think with him is that there was that switch that was flipped in his head that I can do this. And, he came in with the right attitude. And that's why you're seeing what's happening on the ice. Can he continue to keep doing this for the rest of the season? I really hope so, because at the end of the day, the Caps aren't going to get the season that they want. But if Alex Ovechkin can edge ever so closer to catching the great one, then this season is not a total loss. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about changes that will be coming to the Capitals roster. You can count on it. When will it take place and how will it take shape? I'll discuss coming up. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Listen, sometimes you're watching a basketball game and you're not that into it. Open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, the game is that much more exciting. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So one of the things that was said by Brian Maclellan, that before the Capitals played these last 3 games against the Bruins, the Canucks, and the game tonight against the Avs, is that was what he was going to measure on how the Capitals will proceed. Will they be buyers? Will they be sellers? And to what extent will they be sellers? We know that they're going to be sellers, but how much different is this team going to look? And if they are sellers, what players will be playing on the active roster? So being that the Capitals did, in fact, lose this evening, what does that mean? Well, I do expect changes to happen sooner than later, meaning that if there was a trade that happened or a player got moved out this next week, I wouldn't be too surprised about it. If I heard about it tomorrow, I wouldn't be that surprised, because one of the things that we know about Brian Maclellan is he is, for the most part, a man of his word. When he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And some people would say, well, Dan, he's talked about getting that top 6 forward for a long time. I still think at the end of the day that he's tried to do that. There just hasn't been the right guy that fits the bill. But as far as what's going to happen next for the Capitals, you take a look at it. Like I said, even before the Caps played the Bruins, GM Brian Maclellan said the next 3 games will determine in which direction the Capitals will go. The Capitals only won of the 3 games, and I expect changes to take place soon. So again, we know about the last 3 games. The Capitals picked up, an improbable win against the Boston Bruins, and the game went to overtime against the Canucks, which, all things considered, was a pretty good game. Connor McMichael had a bit of a miscue in overtime, but they lost that game in overtime. And then you had the game tonight against the Avalanche, and well, there was good and bad. It wasn't a total dumpster fire, but it was a loss. The Capitals are 6 points out of a playoff spot with just 30 games left in the regular season. 6 points out. So that's where I'm at. I would say if I was the GM right now, I would be a seller. And it's a tough pill to swallow because a lot of the players that will most likely get moved, I'm talking about Nick Dowd, I'm talking about Charlie Lindgren, maybe Max Pacioretty if he's willing to waive his no-move clause, players like that, Nicolas Aube-Kubel, the normal suspects that I've talked about on the show, that many of those players plus more could be on the move sooner than later. Tough things for the Capitals. The Caps have now dropped 8 of the last 9 games. And that's what's being drawn into focus. And that is what Brian Maclellan is seeing, is that, we were riding a temporary high when the Capitals took down the Bruins. I was riding a temporary high, but then all of a sudden came crashing back down to reality. And here's where we're at right now. We're tired of losing games. I think we got a team in here that's certainly capable of winning hockey games, and we would like to be in the blueprint. And I think like you said, we've been playing some pretty darn good hockey games here, especially the last 3 games, Lindgren said. I think we've played to our identity, and for us to win, that's what we got to do, is win and be ourselves. We got guys that compete extremely hard and got a high character guys in this room. But yeah, it sucks losing. Of course it sucks losing. And Charlie Lindgren has been one of the key pieces on the Capitals in net. Everyone thought that to start this season, everyone thought that it was Darcy Kemper's net and there was not going to even be a real challenger. But Darcy Kemper has had one of his worst seasons in his career. I'm talking stat-wise. So that's what we're talking about there, is that, Charlie Lindgren, the Capitals, we heard from all the different players. I heard it from Wilson. I've heard it from Carlson, that they're upset that they're losing. But at the end of the day, they're still finding a way to lose games. So how do they turn it around? That is the difficult question. And then just talking about if there's enough runway, to do anything, to the detractors that say, well, why do they have to be sellers? Can't they just make, one strong push here? They've done the push. We've seen the push, and it hasn't been enough. So talking about players, so say there is a big sale, and Brian Maclellan moves a lot of pieces out of the district, say Charlie Lindgren leaves and Nick Dowd leaves, and Max Pacioretty is out of here, and Nicholas, say it's a lot of those players. Maybe it's a guy or two down in Hershey. Who is going to play on the big team? The Capitals have a group of young prospects in Hershey, like Ivan Miroshnichenko, Hendrix Lapierre, Ethan Frank, Pierre Dubé, Vincent Iorio, and Clay Stevenson, who we very might well see before the season ends. And I think we will see those players sooner than later if there is a lot of movement on the deadline or before. And this will be a good opportunity as you take a look at the Capitals. They are one of the oldest teams roster-wise in all of the NHL, that finally it'll be the time for this team to get younger and faster. I would like to see what even Miroshnichenko has. I'd like to see Ethan Frank on this team and Pierre Dubé during the regular season and what they have in the tank. We've seen Miroshnichenko earlier this season and kind of mixed reviews. I still think that there's some work that needs to be done in his game, but you take a look at Ethan Frank, he's got a lot of potential. He can score goals on the regular. The fastest guy in the AHL, second year in a row in the skills competition, was the fastest skater and even skates faster than Connor McDavid Can you believe it? And that's untapped raw talent down in Hershey. Why not get a look at a player like that on the big team? And then you take a look at Pierre Dubé, for example, number one in all of the AHL, or number two, was it, all in AHL in goals. So a lot of things to consider. What player's going to move here, what player's going to move there. But at the end of the day, it would be a good thing to see what a lot of these younger guys have in the tank. And now, as I look at it, Pierre Dubé is number two in all of the AHL. Ethan Frank, number six. And also, we know that if Charlie Lindgren goes out, that there's going to be a vacancy in net. Clay Stevenson, number one in all of the AHL, a 16-7-1 record. Hunter Shepard, number two in 22 games played, 19-2-1. So there are some viable options, and I do think that this team will look different for the remainder of the season. You take a look at last season, the only real big move was that Hathaway and Orlov and Eller and Marcus Johansson left. And what did the Capitals get in return? They got Rasmus Sandin, who's a good piece, part of the present and the future. But I think it's going to be a little bit more this season. This will be back-to-back seasons that the Capitals have missed the playoffs. And one of the things that I know is that, for the longest time, the Capitals had a sellout record, that, back-to-back at Capital One Arena, it was a sellout. When they pan Capital One Arena, there are quite a few open seats out there. So if they want to keep butts in seats, people buying beer, buying jerseys, buying hot dogs, those kind of things, and at the end of the day, buying tickets to see the game, then they're going to have to put a winning product out on the ice. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, take a look at where the Nationals are at right now. They are in the midst of a rebuild, kind of coming out of the woods here a little bit in the next couple of years. But as you take a look around Nats Park, there are quite a few empty seats there as well. That's what it looks like during a rebuild. It will be a rough stretch. Make no mistake about it. It's not like, you're going to move out all these pieces and then all of a sudden, all this young talent and all these big name players are going to come here. It's a process. It's at least a couple-year process to get back into competition. So even if the Capitals decide to hold on to a lot of their players, it's going to be a couple of years before they're good. And if they do get rid of a lot of their players, it's going to be a couple of years. So this is going to be a thing that Capitals fans, we better get used to, that it is going to be a couple of years before this team is probably competitive again. Because if you move out key pieces and you're in the midst of a rebuild, until some of that young talent comes up, like an Ethan Frank, or we're talking about Leonard or Crystal, when it's some of those players, there are guys in the wings, but they're not going to be here tomorrow. It might be some time before this team, is fully realized and back into a competitive state. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channel app on Amazon Fire TV. I tell you guys, this 24/7 streaming channel, it's everywhere. It's on Amazon TV. It's all over the place. It's on YouTube. So make sure and check it out. Again, I would say that it's a lot like ESPN, but a lot better, and it's free. It doesn't get any better than free. Listen, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.